to talk about anything. I don't run an agenda here. It's an open house.
Hey, well, I think mainly what I'm concerned about is disarmament and our investments in the war economy, because I'm 28 years old, almost 29, so 28 and 3/4, and I'm worried that for the next of my whole entire working life, I'm going to have to be paying for these weapons that I don't agree with. But it's really frustrating when I see that there is such little knowledge of Canada's participation in wars and investments in American weapons companies, and just the lack of knowledge about the extent of the problem and the extent of which Canada has participated in wars, because I think that we are still riding.
Barbara Burkett's next.
Well, I can't be as eloquent as Ellen, but I do have some sense of optimism coming out of this pandemic, and the sense of universality that it gives us, and the demonstration that there's been some resilience and a lot of innovation in trying to cope with it. The base and have that means of communication is encouraging, and we are able to reach more people that we in different places and across countries and continents. I think it's not as good as face-to-face communication, but it is an excellent tool to reach more people, can enhance, citizen attempts to inform. So I do think there will be some good coming out of this.
Yeah, I think along with Doug Roach, I think the next stage in technology is developing Zoom to the point where we can all hug each other. When we get to that point, then we'll have made it. Okay. I think Charles Tauber is next, and then put your hands up if you want to be called on. Charles?
Yeah, I think the problem goes deeper. I think the problem goes down to a basic lack of humanity and feeling empathy with one another. I mean, I'm seeing what is happening, for example, now in Bosnia, in Northwest Bosnia. I don't know if anybody else has seen the videos of Bihać and what's happening with the migrant situation there, or in Serbia, in Šid, which is 30 kilometers from where we are at the moment. But police and others...
excuse me, Charles, let's let people know that you're in Vukovar.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm in eastern Croatia, the eastern part of Croatia on the Danube River. And we're in touch with people in Bihać, in Northwest Bosnia. There are several snowstorms now. Migrants are, on Friday night, one of the camps was burned. And so the people have been out in the snow for a couple of days. There are lots of volunteers trying to do something, but what's happening is it is totally disorganized. It is totally inhuman. The police, Croatia has been brought before the European ombudsman because of what the police have done. I've been hearing stories out of Serbia as well, and I've been hearing stories out of Greece. In short, nobody. And I heard just now that somebody on the Serbian-Romanian border nearly froze to death, and there are a lot of people freezing to death. In short, there is a lack of humanity. There is a lack of any kind of respect for human beings, and that's by governments, and people follow like sheep. So in other words, the police and everybody else are obeying. And we have to get rid of that philosophy and that idea that we obey authority. We have to think. Einstein said that the greatest enemy, that unthinking obedience to authority is the greatest enemy of truth. I'm seeing that, I hate to say it, constantly. And the other side of this is that when this happens to people, they transmit it to other people and to their children.
What I would like to do is congratulate Alan. I thought he was right on the money, and I'd like to add another dimension to what he's been saying, and and that is this whole world of values, which right now it seems like the concept of value only has a single dimension, and that is economics. Whereas we live our lives in a world where we value happiness and love and family and many other dimensions which have a lot of value, and it's how we function as within our tribes and within our countries and how we interact with other people. And it is all not driven by finance. However, when you listen to economists in the neoliberalist economic outlook, what it's really doing is what I term robbing from the poor to give to the rich, whereby we are getting our systems are designed under this neoliberalism model to drive more and more money to the billionaires and make the poor poorer and the rich richer. This has to be broken down and confronted just as strongly as Alan said. The education, we somehow have to address the problem of an abundance of information and knowledge, and people who are ill-equipped to absorb that, let alone become a force within a democracy that's going to make wise decisions. I mean, we almost have to go back to the philosopher kings, and then all of a sudden you say, well, Trump was a philosopher king, but it's the wrong type of philosopher king. That isn't really what we need. We don't need something based on hate and violence and pure economic driving forces to line, the king's own pockets. Anyway, I would just like to conclude by saying this has been a topic, of course, of a number of think tanks around the world who are trying to address the very problem which is on the table here today. This is not barren territory, and we're hearing from other people around the world who are in fact, pointing that out as well, and where strength should be brought into these existing movements and linkages made, and so there should be.
Thank you, Art. Okay, Erica, you've been patient.
Well, thank you, Meta. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Erica Simpson, and I'm a professor of international politics at the University of Western Ontario, which is in London, Ontario, and Canada. And so my courses are in global diplomacy, global violence, international security, and defense policy. And my research focuses on nuclear deterrence and nuclear issues, and also peacekeeping. So I've written a lot about Afghanistan. In fact, my most recent PhD student is now the senior advisor to the Minister of Defense in Afghanistan in Kabul. So I'm getting the things. The reason I wanted to talk on this topic is I was just talking to my editor in Postmedia, like this is why I'm late. I have a syndicated column, and he was explaining to me, he's the editor for Postmedia, which is the largest digital newspaper chain and digital chain in Canada. And so we were talking about the problem right now for democracy, because his chain, they have cut all of the funding for all of the columnists, all of the freelance columnists, including me, since March. And the reason for that is because of the drop in advertisements from corporations. They are simply not advertising in the newspapers at all. And he was saying even this Boxing Week, which is usually their highest revenue, they have no revenue. So he doesn't see any opportunity for freelance, except for my other editor is at the Hill Times. And the Hill Times is a subscription-based newspaper that services members of parliament, senators, and also people who are more interested in foreign and defense policy from a Canadian perspective. So I was talking to them, Jim Kresge and his media person, and she's trying to get students, because I'm a professor at the university, to subscribe. But the students will not subscribe simply because they get it free through the universities, through Press Reader. So their subscription base is dropping. And they don't pay any of their columnists at all, none of them at all, anything. So these are all negative points, but I wanted to end on a positive point, which is raised by Barbara, I think very practical point as well. And that is that Zoom is connecting people all around the world. I just talked to a guy in Oklahoma, and what were we talking about an hour ago? Putting his webinar so that I can reach tens of thousands of academics all around the world, where he does a pre-recorded on-demand lecture, doesn't take him much time. And then we put it like Meta's doing, we reach all around the world. And so for a lot of us, Zoom has changed our ability to reach. I see Volker Beck from Germany, and people from all around the world are coming together very inexpensively. And thus I see that as an opportunity for significant change. Thank you for the opportunity, Meta, to talk to this very illustrious group of
Thank
people.
you. It's always good to hear you, Erica. And I can add to that, I don't want to go into a long plug, but we will be, Project Save the World, which is running this, will be running a 24-hour a day, 7 days a week, a YouTube channel where you can tune in at any time. In fact, it's there already. My problem is getting the URLs stable enough to advertise it, because they keep changing things on me. But another couple of weeks we'll have it in place, and we then will try to publicize it so people everywhere in the world can tune in and listen to conversations about peace and global issues. But also we have during the noon hour from 12:30 to 1, we have every weekday a live broadcast. It's not called broadcasting when it's live streamed, but it's something like that. Anyway, on the same channel.
It's just wonderful to be here. I'm delighted to see familiar faces, and I like very much what I've heard. And I want to add one thing to the sort of thing that's been heard. It seems to me, Meta, that you're doing a wonderful thing with this organization you have going. And I would like to see something, some particular project go somewhere from here. And let me just give an example. It's a possibility. We've heard from Jim Ranney, is it, today? Mm-hmm. And the situation that we're stuck with, an economy in which the very wealthy are sucking what's left of the wealth out of the poor. I think one has to understand that the reason for that, the reason that the what they call neoliberals were able to get away with that, is basically because the nations of this world see each other as being in competition. Some of them are in competition militarily. They have hate relationships going on, but there's also among the friendly nations a very intense economic competition. And my thesis is that if you want to reduce the inequalities, you have to have a large group of nations that recognize that they have to be in cooperation, not in competition. I attended a Zoom conference recently in which I saw the first gleam of hope for a reduction in inequalities. A lot of people have written about it, and almost everything Jim Ranney said has appeared somewhere in books and papers and so on. But what you have to do is get people cooperating, and it began, and I hope it's going to go on, with the finance minister of France, who about 3 years ago put a tax on digital corporations, which nobody else was doing at that time. So that people like Amazon were getting away without paying any taxes, which is completely unfair. And the French put a 3% tax on. And what is absolutely glorious is that several European nations have followed suit. Now, this isn't a solution, but it's a very tiny step forward. But you can see that it involved a collaboration. It involved intelligent leaders, such as the German finance minister, recognizing that the French Minister of Finance had done something very intelligent. I would like to see things go forward from this group. And with regard to refugees, which we've also heard about today, I would like to see on the agenda of the Security Council of the United Nations something that would do something about that. And the sort of thing I have in mind is that the Security Council would pass a motion which was a new principle, such as that profits from war manufacturers of weapons, a portion of their profits, and a substantial portion, would go towards refugees, because they are partly the cause of the refugee system, whereas it's people like you and me who are asked to subscribe to UNHCR to help with the refugee problem. It's a deep-rooted problem. It's rooted in the system, and the international organization that has the power to do something about this is the United Nations Security Council. And they, a good many years ago now, were able to pass, as some of you will remember, Resolution 1325, which puts women on to committees that are negotiating peace. And the American representative on the Security Council didn't want to vote for this, but the Secretary of State said you're to vote for it even if you're in disagreement, and he did. And the motion passed. So it's possible to get things that sound impossibly difficult through the United Nations Security Council. And it was just the second point I wanted to make.
I think that we've been talking, or a lot of people have been talking about working from the top down. I think we really have to go from the bottom up and empower people to work on their own, to become. I also think that without dealing with people's traumas, they're going to be frustrated. They're going to be completely out of it, and they're going to seek revenge. I don't know how many times I've heard this. People don't have anywhere to vent. People don't know how to even approach the top. We absolutely have to make trauma as a part of our global peace strategy, and it's not being done. Our organization, for example, works on training what we call barefoot therapists, or peer supporters. That means in every community, getting people who to learn about how to deal with their own problems and how to deal with civil society, how to deal with how to go further up the ladder if they need to, but dealing with their own issues, dealing with their own traumas, because how much of the world, and it's a very, very, very substantial part, is highly traumatized, is transmitting all of this stuff to their kids. And so this is going to go on for generations and generations and generations if we don't do something.
Thank you, Charles. Who's next? I should say, I don't know whether Charles made it clear that you work with people who are victims of war or perpetrators of war in a way too, aren't you? Because some of the therapy involves people with guilt of having lived with what they've done. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been in Croatia, Serbia, and Bosnia for 25 and a half years now. We're doing a lot of work online in various places in Africa. We have a group of young psychologists in Turkey. We're working with a group in Würzburg in Germany, working with migrants. And we're getting requests constantly for this same kind of educational work and work with trauma. We think it's very important because you, in fact, how shall I say it? You get rid of the explosives. The trauma is an explosive that can explode at any time. And it causes conflict. And there's been a lot of work, people like John Paul Lederach, John Burton, Adam Curl, those are names within the peace field, the peace and conflict field, who have worked with this thing. And in fact, we've had, particularly with Adam before he died 10 years ago, we had quite a few discussions.
Well, the thing I like, Charles, is that you're connecting to what Erica and Barbara Burkett both commented on, that the wonderful expansion of Zoom means you can do therapy on, by Zoom, and you can do group therapy by Zoom, and you do it. So you say, let's do more, and you talk about training barefoot therapists. My goodness, everybody on this screen could become probably a barefoot therapist if we put our minds to it.
I agree that the bottom up is terribly important. There are a few things, and I won't go into any details, the points where you have to have decisions at government level. And I could give you examples, but I don't think I need to. You're all very intelligent people. And I think that we've had a recent example of that, where the British government have finally come to decide that by the year 2030, no more new vehicles will be sold in Britain that use fossil fuels. And this idea of a 10-year giving the industry 10 years to change their designs is a top-down thing. And it was proposed by Robert Hoffman, who was recognized that this would be necessary in 2016. So it's taken 4 years for this idea to percolate into the mind of a prime minister. And the government of Quebec has decided the same thing, except they made a mistake and made the year 2035. But we're going to have a bash. This is where bottom up comes to persuade them to change the date to 2030. So this is an example where you need the top down as well as the bottom up.
And I just hope that we're still around by 2030, but I feel that fossil fuels should be, subsidies to fossil fuels should be eliminated. And the technology already exists for clear, sustainable forms of energy. It's just a matter of political will.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well said. if I could add a dimension here, that the comment on working from the bottom up is as important as from the top down. I want to let you know that I'm calling from Ottawa, and I have been living fossil fuel free in my house. Yes, I have lots of solar. I have Tesla batteries. I have a ground source heat pump. I'm 100% electric in living, and in transportation. I have an electric vehicle now, and I have demonstrated this as being a totally viable technology for Canada, at least in that 50-mile stretch along the Canada-U.S. border. The further north you go, the harder it becomes, but it's not impossible. And
how can people, Art, how can people learn how to do what you've done?
And I have multiple YouTubes up, and I have tours. I've given over 160 tours of the facility, and it was only COVID-19 that shut me down. But the real point here is that to be sustainable, one has to be working with nature, not against it. Much of our neoliberal economic driving forces are saying, how can we harness nature to gain profits? And in fact, that is really, really wrong. We must learn how to live with nature, to go with nature's flows. We're in the business right now of harming the very fundamental aspects of our ecosystems upon which all these riches are coming, and we're killing it.
Art, Adam Wynn has in the chat said, are you the Dr. Hunter involved with the Energy Freedom Project?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you for your intervention. Now let me move to Wanda Lauren, please.
So what Art is talking about, Tony Seba, if you Google him, he has got many videos out about the revolution that's coming. And the revolution is going to, he calls it market disruptors. And the revolution that he says is the culmination or the intersection of technologies that bring about change much faster than the mainstream think is going to happen. And what he's saying is the electric car combined with our technology coming from satellite directional systems is going to, and with automated vehicles, is going to be a complete revolution that is catching all of these manufacturers with their pants down, because the electric car is going to be so much cheaper than the internal combustion engine. And automated cars are going to make us owning vehicles. Like when I see that young gal on there, she's probably going to be the generation.
The same thing about computers.
Yes. And you know, when they came up with the phones that they said, oh, you can carry a phone around, people laughed at them. And that was like 10 years later, we're packing more information in a little tiny disc than they could fill a room with before. Anyway, so he says the intersection of all of this technology, which we are seeing right now with us on Zoom from all parts of the world, is going to revolutionize travel. And it's going to also revolutionize our use of fossil fuels. It's just, and so Art living in his solar house and driving his electric vehicle, that's going to be commonplace. Like, it's just coming. It's going to be such a revolution, and it's going to be so clean that these people who have invested in ICE vehicles and invested in fossil fuels, it's just going to be stranded debt. And what we have to do is find a way to make it not be a market disruptor that destroys us as a civilization, because we are a global civilization. We need to be proactive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Marx had a concept that people should have control of their own technology. And I feel that control is a big issue for our government, for the people who make these decisions on our behalf.
This conversation is one of the weekly series Talk About Saving the World, produced by Peace Magazine and Project Save the World. Please visit our website at tosavetheworld.ca, where you can sign the Platform for Survival, a list of 25 public policy proposals that, if enacted, would greatly reduce the risk of 6 global threats to humankind. Come back next week for another discussion of a serious global issue.